All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of The Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and today we're here to talk about the Phoenix race. I'm here at Phoenix Raceway on a beautiful sunny day here in the desert. And man, I tell you what, sometimes I know I'm the outlier because I'm too negative. I feel like today I'm going to be the outlier because I'm going to be too positive, because I can see on social media that people are like, oh, those tires, shut up about the tires, this gimmick, blah, 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 blah. I freaking loved this race. I loved it all day. I was super into it. I was super engaged. It was just very, very interesting to see the strategies. I loved trying to figure out what everybody was doing, what was going to happen, the length of the runs, how far they could go, coming through the field. I was just like, this is freaking awesome. I know I can see it. I can see it on social media right now. People are like, oh, I don't want to, this. No, please don't do this again. I'm not going to apologize. I cannot apologize for loving this race. Like, I've thought it was freaking awesome, and I cannot wait to talk about it. We just got all this talk about strategy in the garage and all this stuff, and what was going on. And I mean, it was a great finish. Like, I'm like very, very excited about this race. Again, I'm very curious to see what everybody else thinks, because I feel like I'm going to be like alone on an island or something. But I don't know, Jordan, what did you think of this?
I think Phoenix and NASCAR owe a big thank you to Goodyear, because without the option tires today, this race would have been a snooze fest. This has just not been a great track, but the tire compound today added an element to this race. It added entertainment, it added passing, it added strategy. It added all of the things that largely are missing from Phoenix races. We saw that today. And for the people that say, well, this was a gimmick and et cetera, we want to see pure racing, the best car won. Like, Bell was going to win. If this race is a straight up race, no option tires, I would bet you dollars to donuts Bell wins this race going away. But it was entertaining in between because we had a lot of different things happen. And without the option tire today, I don't think we're not talking about a race that had a lot of different elements, that had potential upset wins, a Ty Dillon in the mix, Ryan Preece in the mix. This would have been a JGR Toyota runaway today. And we would have been like, oh my God, we got to come back here for the championship. What are we going to do? We got to do something else. The tire compound saved this race and made it far more interesting than it otherwise would have been.
No, I agree. But like, isn't that the whole point? I mean,
you're not going to get any argument from me. Like, that is the point. And I'll tell you this right now. Like, and you said this last week, and I don't know if I disagreed. And I kind of thought about, I want option tires for the championship race. I'm okay with that.
Okay, see, I'm going to say that's a bridge too far.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right. Since you started this, before we talk about anything else, let's just talk about the option tires as a concept, right? Okay, so the drivers, if you ask the drivers, they don't want option tires. They just want this softer tire to be the tire, right? Like this, they just say, this is a great tire. Why don't you just let us use this? It wears out and it makes our cars feel a lot better, and we can race with it and all that stuff, right? I do think there's a place for other tracks on the circuit to have option tires, different compounds. They obviously use them in other racing series, whether it's F1, IndyCar and stuff, and it's part of the strategy. And it mixed up today a lot. And guess what? As you said, Jordan, the fastest car still won. We're still talking about the fast car one. Now, I will say that has in part to do with the way the cautions fell. But okay, when you're talking about the championship race, though, remember Christopher Bell here on the Teardown for Playoffs Media Day last fall. He said, we asked him about this concept. Would you like to see option tires for the Phoenix championship race? He's like, no, absolutely not. Because in his view, you don't want the championship to come down to, oh, hey, I just saved the two sets of reds and I got lucky with a caution, and then I'm the champion now because I did that. And the industry, I don't think, wants the championship to be decided by another sort of what obviously some fans view as a gimmick, right? On top of the playoff system, which is already by some fans viewed as a gimmick. They don't want to introduce that. So for the championship race, for playoff races, I would say probably not. However, there's plenty of races in this long season where you could introduce this element of strategy into it and say, hey, this spices it up a little. It makes it a more watchable race. How many times, Jordan, have we talked about like Martinsville or Phoenix, boy, if this race didn't have the elimination or the playoffs on top of it, it would be a pretty boring race. But you put this other concept layered, and suddenly it's like, whoa, this is super interesting. This is really fascinating. So yes, I think I'm not going to go with the championship race, but I would like to see the option tire used in more races. Not every race.
No, you can't use it at every race.
That's a year. Well, I mean, they're going toward a direction where they've figured out a softer tire. So, could you use it at a Pocono? Could you use it at intermediate tracks? I'm sure they're going to try to start figuring out if they can. I mean, they know how to make I mean, first of all, can we even just back up for a second and just say, I mean, you can't even overstate enough kudos to Goodyear. Like, I mean, this is now unlocked the true key to racing with the next gen car, because remember, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where they're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We got to try this different aero package. We got to try the up down splitter. What are we going to do to take off the underbody and downforce and all that stuff? It's the tires on the track. This has unlocked so much, whether for short tracks, whether for road courses. Now this is the biggest track they've tried it on, a 1 mile track. It's working. It's great. Just keep going this direction. This is fantastic. So I'm so glad that Goodyear has made progress in this area, has gone down this road. Whew, that's huge. That's really huge. There's some light at the end of the tunnel here with this car, right? Because otherwise you were like, oh, this car is going to be around a long time and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. There's nothing they can do to it. Everybody's just stuck. So great. They've started to figure out with the tires. Keep going that direction. I'm just saying, let's not go crazy here, but it's a great concept that they can try to, meticulously and carefully apply to a bunch of other tracks. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Sorry, was that a mouthful? I guess I just talked for like 5 minutes straight without taking a breath. I'm very excited.
That was a lot. I think it's a good concept and it can be applied to a lot of tracks. I honestly don't think we needed it at intermediate tracks. Like, the intermediate racing is so good right now. I don't even want to mess with it. And you also be careful of speeds, because, obviously softer compounds wear, and you have to be careful of tires blowing out and that kind of thing. So you have to be selective on the tracks. But I do think there's certainly a number of tracks where this would work well at. And we can have the conversation if you want about championship race. Whether to me, strategy and how do you manage a race and call a race are part of it. And if you want to save your tires, your option tires for the end of the race, then that's on you. It may work out, it may not. So many times anyway in this championship format, regardless of the championship format, it comes down to luck or cautions, or when a caution may fall or not, and it may hurt a team or may not a team. So, whether you add another element to it, like, that doesn't bother me, because this, at the end of the day, you made your own bet. Like, you made a decision on when you're going to do this, and you have to manage a race. And smart crew chiefs and smart drivers who know how to put themselves in position, I think more often than not, are going to prevail. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure we have a compelling and entertaining championship race. And we haven't always had that at Phoenix. At times and moments, yes, but a big, green flag to checkered flag race, we haven't. Maybe if you go to this tire, or the softer tire that was used today, you go to this for Phoenix, like, hey, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where you go. And I think SVG even said it too. Like, heck, we can even go a little bit softer on this, and maybe you need to. And if you can do that, and the onus is on the drivers to save their tires, man, I'm all for that. But I wouldn't give up on this option tire thing yet. But to echo your point, I am really, really encouraged by what I've seen from Goodyear and NASCAR, because for so long it was, we can't do this, we can't go this way, and everybody's like screaming, why not? And really, the floodgates opened almost a year ago at Bristol, in the spring race, when we saw that race unfold. Now that's to the extreme a little bit. I think we can all agree with that, but it was still really good. And then a few weeks later at Richmond with the wet weather tires and everything. And the way this has unfolded, it has made racing better on the short track, which was a huge problem. And again, we are not talking about how bad this car is on the short tracks. We had another race at Phoenix, followed by a race last year at Martinsville, followed by a race at Richmond they were entertaining and delivered. I still want to see Bristol be better. We need to get Bristol better. But this car, it is no longer a referendum every single short track race on this car and how poor this car is, and this car doesn't do this, and they need to do this. It's like, no, Those boxes have all been checked. We know how to make this better now, and we can move forward. And today was a great race. Today was an entertaining race. I don't know how it's going to resonate with the masses, but I think as someone who appreciates these kinds of races and likes nuance and likes strategy and likes crew chiefs having to be creative with things and drivers having to be uncomfortable and having to manage tires, this was a very, very good race.
All I wanted going into this race was just for there to be enough opportunities for people to get off strategy that we could see some different stuff, see some guys take chances. I was disappointed when I walked the grid this morning and I was like, man, it's a 60 lap first stage. How come nobody's going to put on these tires right away? Fortunately, there was an early caution. And then, so you saw Priest put on the tires and just go from 33rd to, I mean, it was just awesome. And you're like, okay, this is really cool. Like it gives you something else to think about, to look at, talk about, because then you're like, okay, well, he used these tires. Is this going to bite him later in the race? Right.
Yeah.
Like, and it was multiple drivers and it wasn't just like, oh, there was 2 different strategies. Whoa. It was like, I mean, probably half a dozen. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. Right. So,
and like it helped one of the cautions fell a certain way too. Like, let's not lie. Like there was a higher number of cautions in this race than typical. And that certainly helps because that gave crew chiefs an opportunity to do things differently. But again, that's good. That's a good thing.
No, I agree. Like, and one of the people I want to talk to after the race, for instance, was Paul Wolf, because so Joey Logano gets that penalty where he barely crosses the yellow line before start finish. By the way, I guess before we go on, as we're talking about this, I mean, I get it was a close call, but I mean, it's similar to out of bounds, right? So, like, to me, if NASCAR
penalty's a penalty, like you got to call it.
I mean, that was my take. I mean, I know it's close and he wasn't trying to block anybody kind of thing, but I mean, they viewed him as being crossed the line. So he did. So, you want them to officiate it or not? If they don't call that, then it lights up all over Twitter and we get all these questions. Hey, how come did you look at this? Logano's over the line. I can't believe they didn't call it. Guess what? We're not talking about this week. Officiating. Woo, what a relief. Anyway, so they called it.
Well, Jeff, let's let them get through tech. Let's let them get through tech before we start talking about officiating.
Okay. Anyway, so they obviously, Logano's team decides, they follow all the way to the back and they decide, hey, you know what, we're going to put on the set of reds and it works. He drives all the way back to the lead. Right. And so then they get to stage 3 and it's like, okay, what's he going to do now? Cause he's only got 1 set of red option tires left. Everybody else has 2. Oh my gosh, what's he going to do? He's probably going to have to save these. No, they put him on again. Start stage 3. It's like, whoa, how's this going to play out? I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? They must have a strategy play. And I even put it on X. I'm like, all right, help me figure this out here. And some people had some really great theories about like, well, if they get a caution between like lap 80 and 90, then everybody else that just used their reds won't want to put on reds yet again because they won't make it. They'd then put on yellows, right? And then Logano, and if it went green from there, it would run all the way in the end. I'm like, oh, that's genius. Well, guess what? Paul Wolf says that wasn't the plan. I think we're giving him a little bit too much credit. He said at that point, he's like, well, I mean, we're just trying to minimize our damage. We already used our set. And so we were just, what Paul Wolf said is, I thought if this ran green and we could get a big enough lead with our red tires.
You hang on.
And we had, and then we pitted with like 60 to go, then maybe we could still finish 8th or 9th. He was going for a top 10. He wasn't going for the win. Yeah. That wasn't the play. But see, again, it's like you're watching it during the race and you don't know that.
Can I follow up on that really quick? Like a moment for me as we Monday morning quarterback this, Ty Dillon somehow saved 2 sets of reds for the end.
That's a great one. Yes.
And you're like, whoa, like you get like, and the way it fell, it actually fell in his favor. Like, whoa, this dude's like, we could have an upset winner here. This is crazy. Then he sped on pit road. I will say this. He was still on reds. He should have come back down pit road on the caution and taken off of the reds and gone to a yellow. because everyone else in front of him was pretty much on the reds too. So you're really not going to get any advantage. So switch it up, go the other way, and then hope you get a caution. And if you get a caution, come back down pit road, then you put your reds on, and then you can blow by everybody. And it actually fell the way the cautions fell. If he would have done that, he had a chance here to steal a top. Well, he would have finished in top 10 for sure, top 5, and who knows. But that was the thing where you're looking at this going, you guys need to take those things off. Like it's just, it adds a whole different element that you don't even think about as this unfolds.
So guess who did that? I just found out after the race, Tyler Reddick.
Oh, really?
So I went and talked to Billy Scott because on the broadcast, Larry Mack says, hold on, folks, right? With whatever it is to go. He says, we have somebody, one person has a set of reds left, one person. And I'm like, wait, I feel like he used them already. What's going on here, right? So, and then it goes, oh, well, wait, Tyler Reddick's a lap down because of power steering problems and all that stuff. So I went and talked to Billy Scott, Tyler Reddick's crew chief, about this. So what happened was he speeds on pit road before they had the power steering issue. He speeds on pit road. Billy Scott says, all right, well, this is pointless now. We're at the back. Take those off, put the yellows back on. So then they get a caution and they put the reds back on, and they're on the lead lap, but he was having power steering problems. It was going bad. He was on there. Billy Scott said, if we don't have power steering problems there, we're the only car that has red tires. It worked. He's like, sometimes those mistakes you make just happen to put you on a different strategy. Right.
Yeah.
He's like, we were set up perfectly if we didn't have the power steering issues, but it was so hard for Reddick with this power steering problem. They had a leak or something. It didn't matter. He ends up finishing 20th. Yeah, he couldn't do anything. But he had red tires.
Yeah.
So again, you're like, oh man, like this is such a cool, fun for me element. And I get, I can see the comments, and not everybody shares. So it's fine. But like, I just thought it was freaking awesome. Like all the different things people were doing.
I really wish there was an alternative world where people could have watched this race unfold today without the option tires. And I would bet dollars to donuts. People would be like, man, I'll take the option tire race, because I'm telling you, this race would not, that alternative race would not have been good. It would have been a runaway. It would have been about track position.
For sure.
And it would have just been people like, oh my God, they got to do something. And people would have been screaming for softer tires and this and that. And like, why does Phoenix have the championship and all of these things? And like, and the whole gimmick thing, like, I'm so done with that, because every sport has different things they do to enhance offense. And this is NASCAR's version of that. We want high scoring games. In NASCAR, you want high scoring, you want more lead changes, you want more passing. Well, you get that today. And so like, I have no issue with this gimmicky thing, because and people sit there and scream about Formula One or IndyCar. It's more pure. Like, stop, just stop. They all have their own gimmicks in their own way.
I mean, Bell led 105 laps today, race high. How many laps would he have led if there wasn't all these different comers and goers and all these different leaders and stuff? You know what I mean? Yeah. It would have been a total snoozer, and everybody would have been like, this sucks. I totally agree with you. So what's wrong with why aren't we just allowed to like have like a little bit of a different look to the race and enjoy it for what it was? It has no effect on the rest of the season beyond today. Like I just. What? Well,
I mean, it does.
Bell would have won anyway. He was going to win either way, basically.
Well, it does have an impact the rest of the year, though. I mean, like, in terms of playoff seeding and points and everything like that. I mean, it does have an impact.
Well, but what I'm saying is the outcome was going to be probably the same.
Sure.
Either way, it didn't. The tires just made it more fun today, but it didn't change anything about.
No, I agree.
Forward, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I agree. Right? I mean, we got the deserving winner, but how we got there. Instead of a straight line, which would have been otherwise, we had all of these twists and turns and everything else. And it was like, it's like a choose your own adventure novel. Like, it was like, we got to do all these cool little things instead of just reading it straight through, which would have been like, oh, this is boring as hell.
Well, and here's another thing, right? Like, because this is a situation where sometimes you go to these tracks and you go, man, this guy won, and it probably would have been the same top 5 or similar if they ran this race tomorrow. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, it just doesn't feel like they would be able to have that much difference today. this was so much about where the cautions fell. Going back to your Ty Dillon example, right? Ty Dillon was only able to do that having the yellow tires and having, avoiding the reds for that long and stay on the lead lap because he got the cautions at the right time, right? Like if the race runs green and he gets lapped, that strategy's gone. It was a chance they took. So if you run the same race tomorrow, it's going to look completely different because of where the strategy was, as long as you have the option tire. I'm talking myself more and more into like loving races with option tires. I know, again, it doesn't go against what the garage wants.
There's so many tracks like Pocono. You mentioned Pocono, 100% should have an option tire. Indianapolis, have an option tire. Road courses, option tire.
What about Gateway, New Hampshire? They're in the playoffs now.
Yeah,
so
I'm fine with that.
Do that for the playoffs?
You're talking to somebody who I literally laid out my case. I'm fine with an option tire for the championship race. So I sure as hell I'm okay with it at New Hampshire Gateway. Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, I'm interested to hear the discourse this week and hear how off we are, or I don't think we're going to be necessarily in line with the rest of the industry. I don't know. Because I'm talking about just the concept of option tires. Again, like I think it's a concept used in other racing, but NASCAR, the fans don't seem to want it and the drivers don't seem to want it. So if that's the case, I don't know who wants it. But it'll be interesting to hear what other people have to say this week. I'm just living in the moment right now, and I thought it was pretty cool. But there was just so many things to talk about because of that otherwise we'd be like, it's going to be a short podcast today. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I feel like all these Phoenix podcasts, for instance, right, have been the same. How many years have we been doing this podcast? And like, we're talking about the same thing every Phoenix race. Like, well, it's just not a good track. There's just nothing you can do to have a good race here.
Why
Jamie McMurray on Door Bumper Clear said, a few years ago, Phoenix hasn't had a good race since 1990, whatever, right? Like, it's just, to me, this was refreshing. Like, so yeah, I mean, maybe I'm over the top, but I'm obviously like pretty jacked up about it. So I'm not, again, I don't want to feel bad about that. Don't make me, everybody in the comments, don't make me feel bad for enjoying myself. Come on. Right?
You just made your favorite website, by the way. For a good one too. That's great.
We're on there a lot. Oh,
you are especially.
Everybody's accusing me now of doing it on purpose, and I'm not.
No.
But, well, I guess before I'm kind of all over the place with this, but I guess we probably should acknowledge that somebody just won 3 races in a row for the first time since 2021.
Told you.
Christopher Bell. You told me?
Yeah.
Well, you did. You're right. You did say that.
You said it was, and you wrote it
on The Athletic.
I'm like, no, man.
I did say it was going to be Team Penske. Yeah. But, I mean, look, the guy is, he's nailing it right now. It's interesting because I was on Sirius this week and we had him as a guest with Danielle Trotta, and he was like, the 2 races that I won so far, like I didn't really ever have any expectation of winning them at all. Like the way I won Atlanta, and then even Coda, like he's like, I didn't think I was going to win that race, and it was sort of out of nowhere. This is now in the meat of the season where you're like, okay, he's, this is where he should win. And Vegas, by the way, he almost won Vegas last fall. He could absolutely legit win 4 in a row. Like there's no question. I mean, he's probably going to be the favorite going into it. Yeah, maybe Larson. I don't know.
I'll give you a hot take. Like, and this is going to sound really outlandish. I look at this schedule. I think he's the favorite at Vegas, and then we go to Homestead where he's really, really good, and then Martinsville and Darlington. Like, I could make a case he could win 5 in a row, which is, I know it's crazy.
Oh, stop!
Like, look at the schedule, dude.
No, these races are too weird.
I'm not saying he's going to, but I'm saying like it's not like if I said to you he could win 5, like looking at this schedule, it's not. I'm not. The odds are minimal, but that the fact that he just has a % chance of doing it, and you can talk yourself into it to some degree, tells you, one, how good he is, how good this team is, and just where they're at right now. And again, this schedule sets up so well for them. If they don't have like 5-6 wins by the 600, you're probably gonna like, you're crazy, but like that honestly should be the goal.
Here's my hot take: he's not going to make the Final Four.
I don't think that's a hot take.
I mean, everybody's gonna after this. Everybody's gonna be like championship favorite.
No, but you can't though. Look at Harvick.
That's the problem. That's the problem. This playoff format. Kyle Larson said it right. Like, oh, I could win 10 races and not make it. I mean, this is. I think everybody is going to get so caught up in this is the year of Christopher Bell, and look, and he is going to have a breakout year. He's going to win many races, right? Like he's already won as many races this season as his career high. He's already tied his career high. I mean, could we be talking about a 10-win season? I don't think it's out of the question. But this playoff format, like, remember, Talladega is in round 3 this year, right? Like, so he has one bad race, say, in round 3, and then he gets wrecked at Talladega. Suddenly he's out, and everybody's like, "Whoa, oh my gosh!" Like, you talk about a death knell for this playoff or something. If we have like a 10-race winner that doesn't even make the Final Four, after coming on the heels of last year's controversy, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
it's Kevin Harvick in 2020.
We thought this about Harvick. Exactly. I get it. I get it. But that's not what people want. So it's going to really upset. I just think I could see it happening. I'm almost like resigned. Because I promised myself this year, I'm not going to get caught up in championship favorites. I'm not going to get duped again because all year, the whole playoffs last year, I'm like, Christopher Bell is the championship favorite for like 8 weeks. Then we get to Martinsville and he gets freaking eliminated, and it's just like, well, what was the point? What was the point of all this all year? You talk about who's good, who's no, stop that. Don't bring that into it.
It is. Please. I mean, that's the reality. Like, I mean, we're coming up on March Madness and, pick up Auburn or Duke or whomever, and they're
playing one-on-one with another team.
My point is, I'm not dismissing that. My point is that you can have a dominant year, but we see so many times where dominant years don't necessarily translate to championship greatness. That's just reality. And that's how it is in the sport. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how it is. And I do think you have to recalibrate how you look at a great season. Where I standing on the Christopher Bell soapbox for so long now. And I said he's going to win. He's going to do all these great things. And I think he will. And we're seeing it. He's having this breakout year, if you will. But I don't think you can judge his season as a success or failure by what happens in the playoff. Honestly, for me, it's a success or failure. We'll know after race 26 of the regular season of where he's at in terms of wins, laps led, average, all the important stuff. Where did he finish in regular season points? That to me is going to be a better marker to really gauge of how great that year is. And I think we've had this conversation. I think you and I both are kind of in the same ballpark here. I think going forward too, I think people need to start really appreciating winning the regular season championship and what that means. And I think we need to start looking at that more of saying, oh yeah, he's got he's got X number of regular season championships to his point total, because it does matter. And I think that is, in some way, shape, or form, that is a good indicator, a barometer of what greatness is during this season.
So you like full season points? Is that what you're saying?
No, I do not like full season points. I
you
like
just
the regular
we need to appreciate the regular season champion.
I can have barometer of who's the beauty of this, though. The beauty of this is I can have it both ways. I can have that during the regular season, and I can have it win. But I also want it when Christopher Bell goes to, and again, Christopher Bell goes to Las Vegas and finishes second and is swearing on his radio. Like that means something.
That's so crazy. Anyway, by the way, Christopher Bell's not even the points leader. So
no,
if you're talking about William Byron is the points leader by 13, by the way, despite the guy that's won 3 races is not the points leader right now. 3 out of the first four races. Listen, I think we also just need to be careful not to get too caught up in the narrative. A year ago, after the Vegas race, I was all telling you that I'm not admitting I'm wrong. I'm just saying that I was all telling you, oh, this showed who has strength and all that stuff, right? This narrative in particular about Chris Bell, look, he could have easily not won Atlanta, right? Well, we had acknowledged that he could have easily not won that race. He could have easily not won Coda, because we don't know if a caution doesn't come out. Maybe Kyle Busch wins that race. And by the way, he had a great drive at the end of this race. The last 2 laps were awesome, which we need to talk about in a moment here. But he was potentially inches away if that goes a different way. I mean, maybe Denny Hamlin wins this race. Maybe if a few things go differently, Christopher Bell is winless. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, let's pump the brakes on everything Christopher Bell. This is a long season. I think he's having a great year, great start. He's coming into his own. I think he's a phenomenal talent, obviously. And we're finally starting to see him put it all together. But that doesn't mean anything in the sport. So that's all I'm saying. You want to talk about the finish?
Trophy to trophy. And honestly, I feel like you can nitpick a lot of wins. And that's why it's a slippery slope to me of like, well, if this would have happened, he couldn't have won. It's like, yeah, and this could have happened. You know, there's so many things that would have, should have, could have. And he was also in contention for the Daytona 500 until late, you know. So all you can do is capitalize when you have the opportunities, and he's certainly doing that right now. And to your point, though, and I agree, like, you go back a year ago, I think it was William Byron who won 3 of the first 9 races. And we're like, man, like, this is, you know, young driver really making a statement here. And he ended up making the championship 4 and had a great year. But, you know, long year. We'll see how this comes out. I think it's worth noting, too. We've had there was a lot of conversation over the offseason, obviously, with Joe Gibbs Racing and all of the changes they made. They haven't won a race since late June. That narrative has been put to bed to some degree, but Bell winning 3 straight. Worth mentioning, though, like, congratulations to Joe Gibbs Racing. They obviously have turned their program around and made gains. Their other 3 drivers have still not won a race in a long time. Like, I think it's Denny Hamlin at Richmond. Denny Hamlin at Dover was the last non-Christopher Bell Joe Gibbs Racing win, which is quite the stretch.
Yeah, it's coming up on a year for sure. But Hamlin was close today.
Sure.
So let's talk about the finish. Listen, I think, you know, you had a strength on strength moment there. It was going to be really fun to decide it, because you had equal tires, all those 3 guys in the top 3. We obviously know Bell, Hamlin, Larson are some of the best to do it, the best out there. It was interesting because, so on the restart, Larson gives Hamlin a big push. And it wasn't, I'm not talking about the push on the backstretch, but the push to start and get Hamlin going. Larson timed it perfect in order to do that. Like, he nailed it. And so it helped Hamlin get a really good run. Then Larson has to choose. He has a moment where he has to choose on the backstretch. Okay, do I try to make this 3 wide? Do I try to go down low? Or do I maybe push Denny and see if that can get them along side by side? Maybe I could try to clear Bell, something like that, right? So I asked him after the race about this. He just felt like if he ducked down, he wasn't necessarily going to have the angle to make it all work. He was going to lose momentum. The guys behind him were going to be charging really quickly. And it was going to be maybe a dicey moment. Maybe he wrecks all 3 of them, right? So he figured, okay, let me push Hamlin, try to get him alongside Bell. They'll race each other, right? And then what Larson was hoping is, okay, they'll have contact. They're going to race each other so hard here. They'll have contact, and then I could take advantage and get the win. As it turned out, Bell and Hamlin race each other. Like, and it was interesting because Denny had said afterwards too, like, we're talking to Denny, and he said, I've never really raced Bell for the win like that. Which was interesting, right? Like, they haven't really gone head to head straight up for a race win, but the degree of difficulty was what really impressed me on that, because you look, I mean, they are side drafting the absolute crap out of each other within like inches, right? Like, just so close, without hitting doors. And obviously, I mean, and Hamlin's too, you know, he's like, being teammates in that situation is so hard because you know, he said we could look like total idiots here if we take ourselves out and wreck, being in control of the race like that, if we're the top two cars, if we run into each other and wreck and Larson wins, I mean, that's going to be such a bad look, right? So like they have to race each other as hard as possible without running into each other and race for the win. And so, Bell kind of ran him up the track, but it was clean. It was, again, another clean finish, second week in a row where Cup Series has a great, clean, professional finish without running people over. Christopher Bell said on Sirius this week, he said about Coda, like, I want this to be the start of maybe a new reputation for the Cup Series where we don't just have to run into everybody to win these races. You saw it yesterday in Xfinity. Eric Almirola walls the crap out of Bowman to win. Doesn't take a lot of talent to just wall somebody necessarily, right? For the win. It takes a lot. It's a lot harder to race straight up and clean, in my opinion. So, like, I applaud that. I applaud that whole sequence there. They all got out and were good sports. Larson goes right over to Hamlin, fist bump, right? Like, that's how I want to see people race. I love it. So the finish to me was just another thing that was so great about this race.
I would have been really curious to see what would have happened if it would have been a driver other than Kyle Larson in third. And I say that because Kyle Larson is a clean racer, races hard, but races clean. Isn't somebody who really puts bumpers to things. He puts guys in awkward spots, but isn't somebody who goes out of his way and nudges people out of the way, that kind of thing. And for lack of a better example, if it's a Carson Hocevar or Ross Chastain running third, or maybe a driver who doesn't have a lot of wins or doesn't feel like, hey, I'm going to get mine at some point this year, I'm going to be in a good spot, right? If it's a different driver who is a little bit more desperate, how do they handle that last lap? I think this whole thing plays out differently. I thought Larson
will pull some stuff though, dude. Like,
I'm not saying he won't, but like, he isn't somebody who's like going to go in there and just like shove it in there and just wipe everybody out. Like, that's very rarely is that Kyle Larson. I'm having a really hard time thinking of a situation where he's done that. Again, I'm not saying he's not aggressive or doesn't race people hard, but I'm talking somebody who just has no chill and is going to run, somebody like on that situation. It's like, I got these guys right in front of me and I'm pushing these guys. If I push hard enough, I can push one guy into the other one, knock them both out of the way and go on. I think this would have played out much differently had that been somebody else than Kyle Larson behind them. But I was really, it was nice to see this play out the way it did, which is again a natural finish. No controversies, no cautions, no, the lights, when do the lights come on and this and that. This was a good, hard race. And I hate referring to Phoenix as a short track because it is not a short track. But that seems we apparently have just adapted it as a short track now. This was a classic short track race. I mean, in that sense, and it was good to see.
I mean, it's not a short track in the traditional sense, but it races like a short track. So it kind of falls under that style for stock
to
car
some
racing.
degree.
Yeah. I mean,
a little bit.
Let's go back and real quick clean up some of the JGR stuff just before we gloss over it. Cause I wanted to mention Ty Gibbs is on like a historic run of crappiness right now. Just like unbelievably, his results have been just horrible, absolutely horrible. And today apparently they had a brake rotor that went bad to cause that last caution there. It sounded like Bubba might have had a brake rotor too.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Ty Gibbs' results, okay, he finished 16th in the Daytona 500, but aside from that, his last finish inside the top 15, actually his last finish inside the top 25. I guess he finished 25th today, but better than 25th, was Talladega. He finished 13th last October 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, he's gone 35th, 30th, 36th, 32nd, 40th, 16th Daytona 500, 32nd, 34th, and then 25th today. Just absolutely miserable. He is 34th in points. As bad as things have been for Brad Keselowski, things have been worse for Ty Gibbs. I mean, it's just, he is the third to lowest full-time driver right now. He nothing can go right for that team. It's pretty crazy. And then I'll let you comment on that in a second, but I'll also just Chase Briscoe. He gets his 100 points back. So you're like, well, that's good. I mean, maybe they'll be right back in it now. And then they get into that deal today. I'm not sure whose fault that was. I mean, Justin Haley seemed to blame Ty Gibbs, because he said, I was trying to check up for Gibbs. And then Chase Briscoe's team radio also blamed Ty Gibbs for crowding Justin Haley into him. But either way, Chase Briscoe seemed to, in his post-race or in his care center interview, he seemed to take responsibility for it, hitting Haley to initiate that big one. But things are not going great for Chase Briscoe either. So what do you make of Gibbs, and what do you make of Briscoe's situation right now?
Briscoe, I'm not worried about. Honestly, if you look at situationally, they're not running bad. They're performing well. They haven't had a lot of luck go their way. Today's a perfect example. Wrong place, wrong time, got caught up in something. They seemed like they had speed in their race car. I'm not worried about that, because if you have performance, if you continue to have performance, the results will eventually come. I really believe that. I'm a process guy. The Ty Gibbs thing concerns me because the performance hasn't been there. It's not like they're running exceptionally well and then things are going wrong. Now, that said, he started off bad today. He was running as high as, I think, 13th in the brake rotor. They rallied nice, got down a lap, came back, got up to, I think, 13th when they had the mechanical issue. Still, if you compare his performance to his other team, not well. 11's running well. We know the 20's running well. The 19 seems to be okay. The 54 has got issues. Now, part of why they made a crew chief change over the offseason was they needed a new voice in that team. He and Chris Gale had been together for some years, and Ty needed a different voice in his year. That team, for lack of a better term, stagnant. It just kind of felt like they kind of gone as far as they were going to go. They needed to change a direction. They have not had it. Is it time to pull the alarm and be worried? Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. I still think he's, listen, you're with Joe Gibbs Racing. He's still a really good driver. You're just going through this stretch right now, and you're going to have these moments where things go wrong, and you're like, what can we do to get out of this? He needs to figure this out, though. You need to start stringing together good finishes, because this isn't just like, oh, new crew chief driver combination. We're kind of going through the motions and trying to figure this all out. It's like, no, like this, it goes back deeper, because like you ran through the numbers. This goes back to last fall, and it even goes back even further than the numbers you said in terms of qualifying well, in terms of running well, in terms of laps led. Like, it's just not been there for right now, and it hasn't been there for a while. That's eyebrow raising, and though he's still a good, again, he has demonstrated he is very good driver who can make the playoffs with his ability. We'll see. I will say he's on his 91st career start. He's approaching 100. So he's in that range now of breaking through and getting his first win. But it just doesn't look like they're there right now. And I don't know what that magic solution is. I don't know if it's just one of these things where you're just like, man, things are just going really bad for us right now. We can't set our own way, and we need to hit the reset button. Or there's some underlying deeper issues here at play. But whatever it is, it's not good.
Let's talk about Hendrick Motorsports performance, because at Phoenix all of last year, they weren't happy with how they performed at Spring Phoenix. And then they talked all year like, man, this is a place where we really need to get better. We really need to focus, put a lot of emphasis into. And then they came back in the fall, and it still wasn't good enough. Like, they were very disappointed with that. Larson was obviously in contention to win today. I think Byron would have been in contention to win had he not had that very ill-timed
he got caught
road
up
penalty.
Yep.
Yeah, or not a penalty, but when the caution came out, so he had to start tail end basically. And so, he had pitted right at the start of that window, and it just didn't work out right. Unfortunate. I mean, he led 83 laps today. I would have liked to see what would have happened if Byron was in, because he probably would have been running with that top 4 group, or that top 3 group, right? On the last restart. What would Byron have done there? Where would he have been in that? How would that have mixed it up? But he ran pretty well. Chase Elliott he ended up finishing 6th, by the way, Byron. He got back up to 6th. Chase Elliott took longer to get through the field because he also got caught in the same circumstances that Byron did, but Elliott got back up to 10th. He wasn't really having any sort of spectacular day. Bowman had a pretty good day going for a while. He finished 7th. So it ultimately ends up that at this place where Hendrick has been trying to get better, Hendrick gets all 4 cars in the top 10. So if you're Hendrick, do you leave here being like, okay, we're back in the game here for Phoenix. We're not going to come back feeling as bad, or did you still want to see more, given that one of their cars led a bunch of laps, the other cars didn't really get up there?
If I'm Hendrick, I want more, because I'm looking at this going, really the only guy we felt confident in today who maybe had a chance to run with a 20 was the 24. For most of the day, the 9 was meh. Like, he was out to lunch, and I even had in my notes, I even wrote that meh. And then he rallied back and finished 10th, which is fine. But like, when you've got a bad day and you finish 10th, I guess that's a good thing. Bowman had a really good day, and good job for him, like, coming back. But he was never at any point did you think he was going to win this race. He never looked like he had any speed. And Kyle Larson said it post race. Like, he's just like, we finished 3rd today, but we didn't have a great car. Like, and so like they're obviously not clicking to the level that we're used to seeing these guys at. Now, that said, like, even on Hendrick's bad day, Kyle Larson finishes 3rd, nearly wins the race. Bowman and Elliott, all 4 cars finished in the top 10. So like, I guess on the one hand you're encouraged, but no, they have work to do. It's certainly they have work to do here. It certainly, this has been especially this spring race, this has been a Toyota track in the spring. And then we know what the fall is like with the Penske cars. And so, yeah, Hendrick certainly has their work cut out for them. I'm really curious to see what they have at Las Vegas and Homestead, because we really haven't seen much out of the 5 team this year. And that's not disrespectful or anything. Like, they're doing well. I mean, they finished 3rd again today. They had a good run and going at Coda. They rallied back, and they would probably had a better finish than they had if there had been a spin there at the end. But we really haven't seen a dominant, assertive performance from the 5 team this year. Certainly, I think going back off the top of my head, I think the last time would probably be Homestead last fall. I'm waiting for these guys to break out, and I keep waiting for Chase Elliott to like show me more. It's like it's like last year was like, you look at the stats and you're like, yeah, average finish is good and he's in the mix, but he wasn't winning stages. He only won 1 race. Like, that team is just okay, and they're not great. They're not dominant. They're not world beaters. When's the last time we looked at the 9 team and said, man, they're kicking everyone's, week in and week out. They're the championship favorite, or, they're the team that we haven't talked about them in a while like that. And it's, and again, like, it's first world problems when you run as well as they are and you're like, oh my God, that's bad. But that's the standard they have to live with. Byron, I feel confident in. It seems like that team is running really well, and they've been in the mix. They almost won at Coda, almost won today. Obviously, they won Daytona. They're fine. Like, and I feel like they're going to be okay in Vegas. So I feel like these next few weeks are really going to tell us a lot about Hendrick and where they're at organizationally and how they stack up. And if they are, again, the team to beat, or is this a Gibbs thing? Is this a 2311? I've got a lot of questions right now about Hendrick Motorsports.
Well, the team that everybody was trying to chase was Penske, right? And coming into this race, as you know, I said that, man, this is going to be, we're going to see the same Penske where we left off. My opinion is you're smiling like, oh, haha, I gotcha.
Told you.
You told me. I think we got a false read on Penske. Why are you laughing? I think we got a false read.
Why do we have a false read?
Okay. So Logano on that restart had the lead. You could say, well, he got the lead because he passed below the O line coming to, I mean, that's not why he got the lead. He was going to be leading for a while, right? When he got penalized, he was the race leader. And even if not, he was going to be second at that moment, right? Okay. So he ends up having to use his red tires too early to overcome the penalty, as we've talked about. Logano ends up finishing 13th. Where would he have been if he was on the same strategy as everybody else? He would have been in the top 5. He qualified second. He almost got the pole. Byron just got him for the pole at the very end there. Paul Wolf, we talked to him afterwards. As I said, he said they showed up with a very similar setup as they did in the fall, and the concepts relayed the same, basically. Like, they pretty much translated the same. He felt pretty good about where they were. So we could say, well, Logano, wasn't the same. He just won the championship. Now look where he is. That's not, I don't think we got a great look at that. Now, Ryan Blaney, he was not as dominant. He was not as strong as I thought he was going to be, but he was running top 10.
Yeah.
When he started, and then he blew up. Right. So I wish I saw who put this on social media. Now that I'm live on doing the podcast, I can't look it up, but somebody posted, it might've been the NASCAR Insights account, that was Ryan Blaney's first mechanical related DNF since 2019. So that's pretty impressive. Like the guy just doesn't have engine failures and all that stuff. Right. So, anyway, would Blaney have been up there? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying he was going to contend for the win, but he was probably going to be a top 10 still. And then Cindric, right? Like he was off strategy with using his reds and all that stuff. So, he ends up finishing 19th, but that was because he dropped on his yellows late when everybody else had reds. So do we really know how good Penske was? Because the biggest hint that we have, Jordan, is Josh Berry. Josh Berry finished 4th today, and Josh Berry is a Penske car. We forget about that when they weren't running competitively for such a long time. But we have a top 5 from Josh Berry. You don't think that means that Penske would have been good? Logano would have been in the top 5 if he didn't have the penalty, I think. Blaney would have been in the top 10. I don't know that Penske was that far out. That's why I think we got a false read on them. You're skeptical though.
I don't think it's a false read. Like I agree with you that they were off. They weren't what their usual standards are. Their standards in the fall, but they didn't feel like they had a winning race car. Like the 20 felt like a winning race car most of the day. The 24 even felt like a winning race car. Maybe Logano would have been different because it's hard to say how the strategy play out. Bell was really, really good. And the 12 was good today, but they were 5th to 7th place car, and so none of their car, and Barry did good. Barry was finished 4th. Barry had a great day, qualified 4th, finished 4th, really, really good day for that team. But it never felt like he never felt like a race winning car. And so I don't know if it's a false read. It's Penske's in the mix. That's all you can say to me is like, they're in the mix. A couple things go differently. They're fine. They got some things to do. Come back to me in the fall, and they come back here and they're probably going to kick everyone's butt again and win a 4th straight championship. Cause that just seems what they do. But, they seem to be in a much better spot than a year ago. And think of all the hand wringing we had. Oh my God, the Fords are out to lunch. They didn't win a race for a while, and it's not just winning a race. They really didn't feel like they were that competitive, and they really weren't in the ballpark. Like that is a much different conversation we're having right now about Team Penske and where they're at, where we're quibbling over. They were a 5th place car today, 5th place organization. Like, wow, that's a much better than it was a year ago. Ford certainly seems to have speed in their car. Chris Buescher was running well today, and like Josh Berry as well. Like Ford seems much more on par with Toyota and Chevrolet than a year ago. So whatever gains they have to make are minimal.
Again, let's not remember too that this race 1 year ago, despite we talk about, Penske dominates Phoenix, this spring race 1 year ago, Bell came out 20th on the last pit stop, and it all went green, and he drove all the way through the field and won by 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then Penske won the championship. So we have another Bell win. He was the best again today for the 2nd year in a row at the spring race, but I'm not going to be like, Penske, everybody's caught them yet. That's why I think we got a little bit of a false read. Let's talk about Chris Buescher. Much needed moment for RFK there because he gets a top 5. Brad Keselowski gets caught up in another mess, 33rd. As I talked about, he's 33rd in points. Nothing's going right for Keselowski right now. I think I saw on social media that it was probably from the RFK racing account that he gathered the team around and gave him a little pep talk, like things will get better. I think he tweeted as well. He feels like he's running well enough. So, it's unfortunate in the sense that, like, if you're Keselowski, you're, pointing your way in is already pretty much not going to happen. That would be very, very difficult. But, he can certainly win a race. Buescher, though, they needed a nice clean day like this, to run up front on, to get up there on a downforce type track, and he's 10th in points. So, any thoughts on RFK there? And obviously, Priest had his super shining moments for a while on those tires, just didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, Priest had his moments again. I like what I saw to Chris Buescher. Really 3 top 10s in 4 races now this year, quietly 10th in points, running well. I like what I'm seeing out of him, and we know that he's a driver. If they can just give him a little bit to work with, he's going to maximize it. Did that today. Didn't feel like they were a race winning car, but man, like there was a couple moments there. It's like he might steal this one, that he's in a good spot. Brad's for a driver that we both had outside of our playoffs. I think I did. I think you did too, didn't you?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Do I have Brad in?
I thought you had Brad out. I thought we both had Brad out.
Such a long time ago. That 3 weeks ago.
I know I did. But I mean, it's just they're in a stretch right now. They just need a clean day. They just need to go to a race and have a green flag, the checkered flag, and not have any problems, not hit anything. They're playing catch up right now, and they're putting themselves in a position where their path to playoffs is you got to figure you're gonna have to win a race. Thing is, we don't know if they have speed, though. I mean, that's what Brad is saying, and you can look at the underlying numbers and the performance charts and stuff. Like, oh yeah, okay, but like we don't know because they haven't really been in. They haven't had that opportunity to showcase yet. This stretch for them is really important because they need to start flexing some muscle and showing people, yeah, we're gonna be okay. Yeah, we're in a point, so it doesn't matter. We're gonna get a win here. And we'll see. Darlington's coming up. Darlington and Martinsville feel like really big, 2 big races for Brad outside of a super speedway this year. Like, hey, if they're going to get something, that's going to be an opportunity to make a statement.
A couple other things before we move over to the next topic here. I just want to say RCR. They had both cars in the top 12 today. Kyle Busch 8th. Another good run for Kyle Busch in terms of just at least being in the top 10, doing what he has to do. He is 8th in the standings. And then Zane Smith, P9, a really nice run for him. Something that he needed as well. So just want to talk about that. Now I want to talk about Katherine Legge, because she, was much hyped. She was the first woman in 7 years since Danica Patrick ran the 2018 Daytona 500 to make a start in the Cup Series. She's putting herself in a tough spot here because, she's running for BJ McLeod's team, Live Fast Motorsports. Now I looked at BJ McLeod's, the last few times he had come to Phoenix and run, he's like 6 laps down, 7 laps down. And that's, obviously running under green. And we've talked about, you did a whole great story on BJ McLeod a couple years ago about how the drivers absolutely love this guy because he raced with so much respect. He gets out of the way. He tries to do his thing, but he doesn't hold anybody up. She was going to have a very tall task because she had never made a Cup start. She had 1 start in the Xfinity series on an oval. She had a couple road courses as well. She ran the Daytona ARCA race, got 3 laps before she got caught in a wreck. So, it's like, man, you're coming to the Cup race on a shorter track in a part-time back marker car. You've got 25 minutes of practice. She was really off to start practice, and then she qualified only 0.2 off the next slowest car. So I thought that was really impressive. Then, the race starts. She spins out by herself, caused the first caution. And then I thought beyond that, it was a pretty quiet race for her. I think she was staying out of the way. She had talked about before the race, like, my goal is to try to gain respect, to try to learn, all that kind of stuff. And just be out there and not be anybody's way and try to figure out that balance. Unfortunately, I think it was Barry, right? It was passing her car. And she seemed to get a little bit too high, spun out. And then that ruined Suarez's day because he piled in where he was going to have a good run. So, it's like, that was a tough spot. Now, because of all the attrition, she ends up finishing 30th. And she ended up parking it early after that last incident. But I guess the question that people are going to say is, well, what's the approval process here? They talked about it on Holler Talk, the NASCAR podcast. People keep coming back to Mike Wallace. And they said, we're going to look at Katherine during this longer practice session. And we'll be able to evaluate her based on that. But, she's run IMSA, she's run Indy 500 4 times. It's just a tough spot. So before I get your take, I guess here's where I come down on all this. I don't have any problem with anybody trying to come into the Cup Series. I think the approval process was probably about right on for this in terms of like, hey, it's somebody who's been in the Indy 500. It's somebody, they have run an Xfinity race on an oval. So you could say that you're going to make the Cup start. That's okay. We'll approve it. My thing is, I don't want to see drivers of that experience level being approved for the playoffs. If you're going to do it, run in the regular season. I don't want to see somebody new come along and say, hey, I want to make my Cup debut during a playoff race, because we saw today that influenced the race, right? Like the first spin she had, that was when I believe Ryan Preece came down, took the tires. That changes that dynamic of the race. Then, it's another caution that changes the dynamic of the race, takes Suarez out, kind of thing, right? This is nothing against her individually. I'm just talking about a driver with that experience level. I'm fine if they get approved to race Cup based on their experience during the regular season, just not in the playoffs. That would be my request. What's your opinion on all this?
I had no problem with the approval process. I think it served it well. And then compare it to the Mike Wallace situation, honestly, to me, it's apples and oranges. And Mike had run an oval race in 2015 at the national level. Katherine had run the ARCA race at Daytona, and I know it's ARCA, but at least she had been in a high-speed oval race on a stock car. Recently,
like 3 laps, but yeah,
but it's still it's 3 more than Mike Wallace did. And so, and you look at the age as well, the fact that she's ran Indy 500, I have no problem with her getting approved. And I look at it saying, would a road course been better off? Yeah, probably. But if you're going to get oval experience, this is a good track to get that experience, to get that initial start. Martinsville, I don't like. Martinsville to me is tough because it's a small bull ring. There's nowhere to hide. This is the right moment for her to do this. When you look at the schedule and everything, it's really unfortunate that it went the way it did. It sucks for Suarez. That's part of racing. At some point you've got to make that transition, and I have no problem with that. I think you're right on when you say, I think you got to be really careful in the playoffs on the approval process and how you let it play out. I would button that. I would make sure that's real buttoned up about who I'm letting make a debut, in the Cup Series at that time of the year, without substantial experience in the Xfinity Series, like that. But I have no problem with it today. It sucks for her. It's unfortunate. She's going to get a lot of criticism that honestly I don't think is fair. But that's part of it, and we move forward. And I hope she comes back.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's like I just think of it. Remember Quinn Houff, right?
Sure.
he was running half a season in Cup or something, and maybe he ran full season.
He ran full season in Cup.
Yeah. And he would cause a caution. People would be like, oh, it's a Quinn Houff caution. He changed the race and all this stuff, right? And he got pummeled for that. So, it's just, I think you just got to be really careful. And again, like she said in her press conference, she would like to do a road course. She wanted to do COTA last week. The car didn't come together in time, and they had told her you either got to do a short track or a road course to get approved for more races. And as you had said, she was told by other drivers, hey, Martinsville is not the place to do it.
No.
Martinsville is there's nowhere to hide, and they thought that she could learn here. And again, I think she was doing a good job learning. It's unfortunate that she was caught in a couple incidents, but again, I'm fine with how NASCAR handled it on the approval process on this one. I just don't think that in the playoffs, if other drivers are submitting for that, that's where NASCAR needs to draw the line, or just say, hey, why don't you try some Xfinity races or whatever, and we'll catch you next year. That's just my take.
The one thing too this weekend, we compared to Martinsville, there's additional practice, so she was able to get a little bit more seat time. And this thing was so thrown together at the last minute. She was really put in a bad spot where she didn't get a, you would have liked to have seen her get ramped up a little bit more than she did.
Do you want to talk about good race poll now? Do you want to talk about more of the Cup race? We also have the Xfinity race to discuss, the Bowman Almirola thing.
Let's save the good race poll for the end.
Okay. Do you have anything else from Cup that you want to get into?
No. Quickly note, man, I feel bad. How about the day Spire had? So like you're right.
Oh yeah, I meant to mention that. Sorry. Yeah, Spire.
You're riding this high on Saturday, and it's this continued, bubbling of optimism, and like they're just on the cusp and showing speed. All three cars qualifying the top 8. You're like, okay, all right, here we go, and then boom, it just goes sideways in such a hurry. All three cars are involved in accidents, and the results aren't there, and it's just like, man, and I've said this before, and it's so true. You don't know how long the speed is going to be there for you. There is no guarantee that the speed is going to be there next week or next month. And when you have moments, when you have this performance is sitting there, like, you have to capitalize. And honestly, Hocevar finished second in Atlanta and he almost did it, but it feels like they've let a lot get away from them.
Yeah. They had speed in practice, backed it up in qualifying. You're like, wow, this is going to be really, good. This is looking great for them. They could have a banner day for their whole organization and just all goes away. But I don't know what you could do about that.
Nothing.
The McDowell thing wasn't his fault.
Nope.
Something broke, and then the other 2 cars got caught in a wreck. So you could say, Hocevar, I don't think you're blaming Haley for that. And Hocevar was on the outside of it. So
Hocevar did say, like, we can't put ourselves in that position. I don't know if they had an issue on pit road. It sounded like.
I didn't see how he got back there. Yeah.
He sounded like, and I'm like, I go back and look at it and hear what he said. I thought he said that they had an issue on pit road, and that's they lost a bunch of spots. So that's controlling your fate a little bit.
That's fair.
But again, McDowell's accident, but it's just, you don't know. And it's just, they feel like they're just knocking on this door. And then sometimes they knock on the door and that door gets kicked back in their face.
So our friend Alan Cavana last night, we had a bit of a differing opinion on the Xfinity race, because his take is that, listen, you're not here to make friends. You're here to go for the trophy. Eric Almirola had a chance to go for the win. He didn't do something dirty, and he won the race. I didn't love how Eric Almirola did that. To me, it was like Alex Bowman. It looked like he was expecting Almirola to give him a lane, and then initially, and I even tweeted this, right? I thought on the replay, it looked like Almirola maybe just got like a little bit too aggressive, trying to get up toward Bowman. And I thought he got like a little bit loose, and then they just kind of, hit the wall, and it was, almost incidental contact. And then Almirola, for his interview, says, well, I knew I was going to go in and use him up a bit, kind of thing. Right. And it was like, here's my thing, Jordan. To me, if it's like your first Xfinity win, or even if you're an Xfinity regular trying to make the playoffs or something, I could see where you do that. Yes, this was a Cup guy racing against a part-time Xfinity guy. And so, maybe Almirola is just like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like, what's the consequences here? I'm not even going to race against Bowman again, probably. Right. Like, but yeah, I just don't love that. Like, why do you feel like that's not impressive at that level? You're like, Almirola's already had a whole big career. What do you, he's supposed to go win, but like, I'd rather see a clean drag race to the line and the best person wins. He pretty much stuffed him in the wall, and like, I don't know. I just didn't love how it went. I don't know. Am I wrong?
You're both right. Like, it was hard racing. It probably crossed the line. It didn't need to be that way. But I will say that Almirola is racing for something. Like, he is in that car to win races, and he's in that car to put that car in the playoffs. And so he is racing for a championship in the Xfinity Series. and his job is to win races and lock that 19 team into the 19 team into the playoffs. And he did that. That's his job. Do I like how he did it? No. I mean, is there, he's also racing a cup guy. So I think you've got a little bit more grace there too. Like it would have been interesting if he's racing another series regular. Are you as aggressive? Or because it's Alex Bowman and he doesn't race every week and you don't have to run him again? Like, are you not really worried about payback and retribution, that kind of thing? But this is the ethos of NASCAR, man. Like this is what this is about, is guys getting into each other and getting physical. And yeah, it would be great if every finish could be like we saw at Coda and today in the Cup Series race, but that's also guys getting into each other and getting physical and shoving each other out of the way. Like this is what NASCAR is about and has been about forever.
You just totally made that site too. Anyway, that's a fine point. I don't know. I'm probably being too much of a pearl clutcher on this one. So
no,
I'll take that.
Pearls.
No. I know. I don't know. Especially after like the Coda finish,
sure.
with Bell talking about how great is it that we can race professionally. And then what you saw in Cup today, I thought was super professional, expert level racing. And it's just like, man, why do you got to do that? I didn't love it. But again, this is one of those things where I'm so glad there's so many great NASCAR podcasts out there, because I can't wait to hear this week, as everybody rolls out their stuff. What's Denny going to say? What's DBC going to say? What's Dale going to say? So it should be really fun. Speaking of Dirty Mo, by the way, don't forget to go to shop.dirtymomedia.com. I just ordered, Jordan, a hat because I had told you they were sending me a shirt and sweatshirt and stuff, but I want a hat too, teardown hat. So although I don't know, what's the rule? I know drivers aren't supposed to wear your own gear. Are we allowed to wear our own podcast stuff around?
Drivers
or is that like a party foul?
Gear? Like
drivers are not really supposed to wear their own like t-shirts.
Okay.
Like Bell's not supposed to walk around in like a big 20 t-shirt. I don't think. Right? Are you?
I mean, they walk around sponsor stuff, which is kind of, and it has their number on there, so it feels like it's the same thing.
Yeah, but like their own merch, I'm saying.
I don't know. You know what? You be a trendsetter, Jeff. You do what you want to do.
No. Anyway, there's Jordan's lemonade shirt. There's all sorts of stuff on there, so make sure to check that out. By the way, speaking of Bell, I'm excited because Thursday night I'm going to the high limit race at Vegas. Bell's racing in it. Larson's racing in it. They're high limits racing with NASCAR on Thursday night and then Saturday night. And so I'm going to go out Thursday night, check it out. Hopefully it's good weather. So I went to the companion one they had last year at Texas. It was cool because the Texas one was right behind the track. And then Kansas Lakeside is right down the road from Kansas Speedway. You wouldn't which I've been to do that one before too. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to do that. I just thought of the Bell thing. All right. Is it time for the good race poll or no?
Let's do it. Who won last week, by the way?
Oh, it wasn't even close. I blew that so bad. I missed it so bad. What?
That's an all-timer right there. That's an all-timer. That's an all-timer. Oh my God, it's awesome.
You got to get this website out of your head.
Oh,
you're actively ruining the podcast for me now. I can't even speak.
Oh,
this is humiliating. I don't even know what I was saying. Anyway,
just spit it out, Jeff.
Dang it. Yeah, Jordan. Come on, man. This is horrible.
See, you just did it again.
You know what? What's hilarious about it is like I laugh so hard at everybody else's that I see on this site that I shouldn't name. I really enjoy when it happens to other people, just not to me. So anyway,
I'm crying. I'm legit crying. Oh,
Um,
this is great.
so I was way off, is what I was trying to say last week. Way off because I don't know what I was thinking. Like this is another thing. I listened to all the podcasts this week, and I was like, everybody freaking loved Coda. I said, oh, it was just a great finish. But the rest of the race was like okay. I wasn't like blown away by it, and everybody was just like, oh, like this Coda's awesome. Like, but yeah, I feel like I missed something. Anyway, so I guessed way too low last week. I guessed way too low. You were way closer. I think it was like 86%. I had said like 73 or something. You said 80, I think. So yeah, I really missed it last week. Now let me tell you about this race. This is going to be really tricky. So the best next gen race at Phoenix, the best one so far, 2022 to present, is 70%. You also have a 67.9 in there, which was the championship race that Blaney won. The next one after that, get this, the next one after that in the next gen era, Phoenix Spring of 2023 that Byron won, 44.8%. The championship race last year, 41.5%. The Bell win last spring, 40.2%. And then the championship race that Logano won 2022, 28%. People have not liked the next gen car at Phoenix at all. So, in fact, Phoenix has never gotten a 90% rating ever in the Was It a Good Race poll, which dates back to 2016. So, I don't know what people are going to say about this. I obviously really, really enjoyed this race. I spent all this time talking about it. And I know we have to go at the same time. I've lost the advantage of you having to go first and me guessing off you.
Are we writing them down again?
Yeah. I'm going to put mine in the calculator here. And so, yeah, I guess are you ready to do yours now? Okay.
Sure.
Oh boy, this is really hard. Don't you think this is very challenging?
Yeah.
Because I know what I would think, but man, I'm kind of deleting it now.
I don't like my number. I don't like my number at all. I am glad we were writing it down this week, though, because I think whoever guesses second would have a huge advantage this week.
Yeah.
I'm changing it again.
Yeah, I am too. I just changed mine again. All right. I'm ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. What do you got? Oh.
75.
75 for you, 82.6 for me.
I went from, hang on here. I went from 78 to 82 back to 75.
Yeah, I had 84 and then I went to 82 and then I was just like, I don't know. It feels like a low 80s race to me. I think it should be higher, but like I could see the comments that maybe I'm reading too much in the reaction to the tires, but I don't know. That's just my take.
I'm gonna be very curious. I thought it was a fine race. I thought it was a really compelling race. If it was me, I would vote yes on this, and I wouldn't think twice about it. But I think there are going to be people who are get hung up on the tire stuff, who are going to be like, "Oh, I don't like it. It's too gimmicky. All they talked about was tires, this, that, whatever." And I think it's going to get dinged for that.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to go lower. Actually, I really thought you were going to go in the 60s.
No. 60s. Oh my gosh!
No, I thought because you're again. This isn't what
disowning
think.
all of you.
It's not exactly
I know,
what. So
well, I don't know what you're looking for if it's in the 60s, but
I mean, how many times do you say that? I don't know what people are looking for.
We're both predicting though that this should be viewed as the best next gen race at Phoenix.
Yeah, but that's such a low bar, though.
I mean, we've seen championship races, and you're saying this is better than all of them. We're both saying that. So
I mean,
anyway,
again, like Phoenix is not a compelling. I mean, I'll die on the hill. Like I don't know why Phoenix has 2 races. Like there is no reason convincing me why Phoenix has 2 days.
It didn't sell out today for the first time. This snapped a streak of 7 straight sellouts. So that was a little bit disappointing, but nice weather this time of year. As you've said about Coda, you're making your argument for Kodo. You're looking for warm weather place this time of year. So this is one. Anyway, we went a little long on this one, but there's so much to talk about. And I'm excited to hear what everybody else has to say this week and see what everybody says on Twitter about it. I was reading the comments on YouTube for most of the show on and off. So thanks to everybody that comes in our live chat as well. And we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.